They said, "You don't even know the way to the town hall." I was once giving a talk in the town hall of Philadelphia, and I lost my way. And I asked a boy, "Where is the town hall?" And he told me, I do not remember the exact address, but something like 12th and Chestnut. And he said, "What are you going to do there?" I said, "Give a talk." "On what?" Well, I didn't want to tell him that I was talking on my usual subject, which will be my subject this afternoon, the accipito frontalis of the convolistic convolutions of the metaphorical obliquarum pelviarum. So I simplified it, and I said, "Well, boys, I'm going to talk on heaven and how to get there. Would you like to come and find out?" They said, "You don't even know the way to the town hall." I was giving a lecture not long ago in a hall, and I was heckled from the hall. Someone interrupted, it was not at all to the point of the lecture, and said, "How was Jonas in the belly of the whale for 3 days?" I said, "I really do not know. But I said, when I get to heaven, I will ask Jonas." He said, "Suppose Jonas isn't there." Well, I said, "Then you ask him." In a certain parish, a couple had taken a lottery ticket, and they won. The husband, however, was getting along in years and was suffering from heart trouble. And the wife was afraid that if she told her husband that he had won $50,000, that he would really die of heart trouble. So she went to the pastor and she said, "Father, I wish you would break the news to him in such a way that it would not kill him." So the pastor spoke about many odd things, and finally he said to the man, "Suppose you won $50,000 in a lottery, what would you do with it?" "Oh," he said, "I'd give it to you, Father." Then the priest dropped dead. I was once talking on prosperity and adversity, and I used the example of flowers. I said some flowers prosper only in sunshine, while others seem to thrive only in the shade, like fuchsias. And afterward, some woman came to me and she said, "That was a wonderful sermon. First time in my life I ever knew what was wrong with my fuchsias." This morning I was trying to cross Fifth Avenue, and every time I tried to cross with the light, cars were turning. And that happened for 2 lights. And there was a man alongside of me. He was getting more angry with every light. His friend had gotten across somehow or other, and he shouted over to him across. He said, "How did you ever get over there?" He said, "I was born here." There's a restaurant in New York that promises to give $1,000 to anyone who can order something they do not have in the restaurant. This man went in and ordered an elephant ear on raisin bread. The waiter said, "Do you want an Indian elephant ear or an African elephant ear?" Oh, he said, "I don't care, as long as it's an elephant ear on raisin bread." The waiter came back with $1,000. He said, "You didn't have the elephant ear?" "Oh, yes, we had that, but we didn't have the raisin bread." I was at a wedding this past week where I saw an exercise in public speaking. The groom was asked to give a speech. He protested. He said he had never given a speech before in his life. He would be very embarrassed, and he begged off, but everyone insisted. He stood up in order to cover his embarrassment and perhaps to get a little support. He leaned his hand on the shoulder of the bride. He began his talk saying, "This thing has been forced on me." I overheard a conversation on the plane the other day. Two women in front of me, and one woman said to the other, "Oh, what a beautiful diamond you have, Mrs. Plotnick." "Yes," Mrs. Plotnick said, "it's a 40-carat diamond. I'd love to have a diamond like that." "No," said Mrs. Plotnick, "it's like the Hope diamond. It has a curse on it." "What's the curse?" "Mr. Plotnick." There were three drunken men who came into the Hotel New Yorker, and they were assigned rooms on the 45th floor. They went out for the night and came back in even a worse state than before, and the clerk said, "I'm sorry, but the elevator's broken. You will have to walk up." And they said, "We don't mind." "No," he said, "don't walk up." He said, "We'll put some cots in the mezzanine floor. You can sleep there." "No," said the first drunk, "we'll walk up." He said, "For the first 15 floors, I will sing." And the second said, "And for the next 15, I will tell funny stories." And the third said, "And for the last 15, I will tell sad stories." They started up for the first 15 floors songs. Next 15 floors, funny stories. And they said to the third man, "All right, begin your sad story." He said, "I forgot the key." This little boy came home from Sunday school or catechism class, and his father said to him, "What did you learn today?" "Oh," he said, "I learned how Moses defeated the Egyptians." "How did he do it?" "Well, the Egyptians were chasing the Israelites, and Moses called the airfield. And the airfield flew in some engineers, and they built some pontoon bridges over the sea. And the Jews crossed over the pontoon bridges. Then another fleet of planes came, and they bombed the pontoon bridges as the the Egyptians were on them, and they were all killed." Father said, "Is that what they told you?" "No," he said, "it isn't, but if I told you what they really said, you wouldn't believe it." I must tell you, first of all, about some things that happened to me. I was preaching not very long ago, and I noticed down in the front pew a mother with a 3 or 4-year-old boy, and she was trying to keep him very quiet. But after I had talked for 15 minutes that must have seemed 15 hours to him, he tugged at his mother's sleeve, and he says, "Mommy, is it really that hard to get to heaven?" And another little boy, when he went to confession, he had in the back of his mind the commandments. And he could be heard going through the commandments in one fashion or another, and then after he had named them to himself, then he would begin the confession of sins. And he was saying, "No strange gods before me." "No, I didn't adore any strange gods. Thou shalt keep holy the name of the Lord. I cursed a couple of times, Father, and keep holy the Sabbath day. I went to Mass every Sunday. Honor the father and mother. I disobeyed my mother about 18 times and my father about 6 times. Thou shalt not kill. I didn't kill anybody. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Sister told me to skip that." But in Rome, there are about 400 churches. Traffic is terrible. Fred Allen said that they have a church on one corner in Rome into which you go to pray that you'll get across safely. They have a church on the other side. You go in to thank God that you made it. You know, there are all kinds of stories about good news and bad news. Did you ever hear about
The doctor who came to a patient in the hospital and said, "I'm awfully sorry, but I shall have to take off your leg." So he amputated it. The next day he came in and said, "I have some good news for you and some bad news." The bad news first. I took off the wrong leg. And the good news, the other leg is getting better. I was talking in upstate New York on one occasion, and I went into the barber shop in the afternoon of the lecture. The barber did not recognize me. He said, "Are you going to that lecture tonight by Bishop Sheen?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Do you have a ticket?" I said, "No, I don't." Well, he said, "All the tickets have been sold. You probably will have to stand." I said, "You know, it's a peculiar thing that every time I go to hear that man talk, I always have to stand."
This is a story about patriotism in the year 2024. A woman was elected President of the United States. The reporters approached the husband and said, "How do you feel about the election?" He said, "I regret that I have only one wife to give to my country."
I too am reminded of a boy 7 years old who had never spoken in his life. The parents did everything they could with him, but to no avail. One morning at breakfast, he said, "This cocoa's cold." And they said to him, why didn't you talk before this?" Well, he said, "Up until now, everything was okay."